others specific to the market. That's typically where Board has the most success to gain new business. Why it wins against those organizations is actually, in my opinion, much less about this combined BI and CPM offering. I don't think that tends to sway many organizations because they're very hyper-focused on the challenge in front of them. And that value proposition is a much bigger, broader piece. Board's software solution, its architecture and its components are very flexible. And so many of those other vendors have sort of pre-built out-of-the-box templates and applications that solve a particular problem. And a great analogy that we can use is Board essentially sells a box or a bag of Legos, where typically the implementation consultant builds a very bespoke, unique, specific CPM application for a customer. And that's the specific application that tends to differentiate Board from a positive perspective from those other vendors. So you have to open a few doors to get to the specific kind of what is the niche that Board lives in and can exploit is to me, it's that. It's unique market requirements that need some flexibility and some uniqueness to that particular market or industry or application within a company that the other vendors are not able to do with their out-of-the-box solutions. If you can hold your fingers together like you're holding a speck of dust, that's the specific piece of the market that Board does well in.
All right. And if you look at other tools or other functionalities within CPM, like consolidation, for example, I mean, you mentioned planning, you mentioned I think the reporting part. How do they compete on these other functionalities?
So again, great question. And I think there is a bit of a geographic difference to the answer. And again, not to throw everything back at the feet of Gartner, but if you gain access to the Magic Quadrants for CPM, you'll see that 2 years ago, Gartner divided them into two subsegments: strategic CPM, which is budgeting, planning, and forecasting, and I think that they call it financial CPM. I think it's F. I'm pretty sure which is consolidation, closing, kind of more of the accounting process piece. And there's a separate set of vendors in there. Tagetik, who you may be familiar with, was Italian-based and purchased by Wolters Kluwer's maybe 18 months ago. Not competitive. In the U.S., we have, I think, zero. So Board has a specific go-to-market application for consolidation because it is such a regulatory-driven process. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. So Board has built a little application around, a big application around consolidation. In the U.S., zero customers using it. Not competitive, not even something that's brought up. In Europe, they have a few customers using it. I think for several reasons. Number one is maybe the market in Europe is a bit more focused on consolidation, certainly much more complicated ownership and multi-entity organizations, I think, are more the norm in Europe than in the U.S. The vendor space, it's dominated by Hyperion here in the U.S., and maybe it's a bit more open over there. And also Board's expertise and alignment with companies who really speak that language to other prospective organizations is much stronger in Europe. There's nobody in the U.S. that can speak to a CFO competently from Board about consolidation, right? We sound like idiots. It's a very specific process, acronym-driven thing. So anyway, maybe we're not dive, but it's an add-on. If it was the first and only problem that an organization was trying to solve, I would walk away because Board would not be competitive. In Europe, again, they've won some new business maybe where that's the first piece. It's really more of an add-on would prefer to have something on-premise, and Board is currently able to address that, which does give them a little bit of an edge on some evaluations over organizations that do not have an on-premise solution. But cloud is it. Cloud is where it's at. Cloud is where it's going to continue to be.
And from a technical point of view, would you say that the cloud offering is as strong as the on-premise offering, or are there any differences? Is this a native cloud solution kind of, or is it an adoption?
Yeah. An adoption, a hybrid, which I think they continue to sort of evolve over time, speaking of Board in particular. I think that there are three things to look at to answer the question, are they the same? The first would be the user experience. The second would be the administrative aspect. And the third would be the data, the data piece. Because data flows into and out of these systems all the time. And so by administration, I mean more application administration. Can I build a new dashboard? Can I add a new workflow piece? Can we create a new planning process for this team? User experience is obviously the users, and then again the data piece. The user experience is the same. Certainly, even with on-premise solutions, most users access those solutions via a browser versus a client. So whether that client connection is to a server in the basement or a server, at Microsoft Azure data center, that experience is the same. The administrative piece, again, Board cut this over from the on-premise version, and there's still, I think, have some fat desktop client administrative pieces that have to happen. And I think that they're looking to close that gap, but I don't think that they've done it yet. But that will happen imminently. But I still think not quite there yet. And because it's admin, not really a big deal. I don't think that Board loses opportunities in the cloud because of that. But it's a point to look at. The data piece, again, is sort of specific to the cloud. I don't know the Board has a better or worse solution than anybody else. If your SQL Server database is in your basement and the Board server is the application server is either on that same physical box or in one next to it, your ability to move data around between the tools is, quite simple. If the entire application and data need to be moved to Microsoft Azure and pick any cloud vendor, there's challenges around that. Again, there's performance time, there's security, there's a lot of things to it that Board is attempting to solve along with everybody else. And so, again, just to kind of break that cloud versus on-premise piece down, for Board, they would say yes because the user is going to have the same experience regardless. The data obviously are different, and that's not specific to Board. And the admin piece, I think, is still SAC client-based, but they're looking to close that gap. So maybe more detail than you wanted, but there are some key considerations in there, some specific to Board and some sort of, again, every cloud vendor faces data integration and data upload challenges into wherever they host their cloud solution.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
All right, we're running out of time here. Do you have a few more minutes, Scott? Or
sorry, I just switched from speaker to handset, and I missed your question. I heard you say we're running out of time, and
yeah, exactly. And do you have a few more minutes, or
yes, of course.
Should we schedule another call?
Either one. I have a few more minutes now, and then certainly if there's a lot of open questions, again, I think I certainly have a few more calls and maybe fill in whatever big blanks they can fill in, and certainly happy to do some details for you. But yeah, I think.
Well, I'll go a few more minutes and we'll see.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So when it would be interesting to hear about who is let's say some examples of RFP processes where Board is really the one with the perfect solution and will always beat the competition. A bit of